Welcome to Beyond the Numbers here on Joy News. I'm Winston, and alongside my co-host Kofi, we are here to bring you in-depth analysis and clear explanations of economic issues that affect Ghana and its people.
Well, thank you, Winston. Today, we are actually focusing on a very hot topic, the new 1 cedi energy debt levy on fuel prices recently approved by Parliament. This levy is designed actually to help tackle the massive debt burden in the energy sector and also stabilize electricity supply. But it's already, sparking debate across the country. What do we have?
Exactly, Kofi. We'll break down what this levy means for everyday consumers, for marketers, and the broader economy. We'll also explore whether this is the best solution or if there are alternative approaches Ghana could take to manage its energy debt without putting extra pressure on you and I.
So why don't you stay with us as we go beyond the numbers to understand the real impact of this policy and what it could mean for you and the future of Ghana's energy landscape. We start from the smart world, Winston, and we've been looking at the numbers, and what you can actually see is the kind of public sentiment around this new bill, Winston. And first one is the energy minister, who says that, look, this new bill or this new tax or the current revision we've seen is not for debt, legacy debt servicing. But we'll go into the numbers. But what we understand is that the latest to add their voice is the IES. What have they been saying, Winston? You have the details.
Yes, the IES says this announcement is a bitter pill, yet we all have to swallow.
Oh, wow.
And they have made analysis, and this was according to a report released by Jeffrey Derrick Emmanuel, who is an economist, an energy and finance expert with the IES. He proposed that although the current economic conditions, all the factors, the CD, the fuel prices, the outlook, just as we just witnessed today, inflation hoping down by 18.4%. All these indicators look good, and the timing for this particular introduction is good. He made mention that the government has to be cautious and ensure that there's a ring fence on the revenue strictly for its intended purpose, unlike many other refinancing models. Most of them are not used for the proper intentions. Another point he made mention is that the government should publish regular reports on collections and disbursement, knowing how much has been collected anytime there's a review on the budget. Third one he recommended has to do with implementing structural reforms in ECG and the broader sector to address inefficiencies, losses and revenue leakages, which we'll be coming down to shortly.
So inefficiencies, losses,
yes.
And that brings us to the big question of shortfalls. One thing that has actually bedeviled our energy sector and is currently making it a debt-making machine of venture is the shortfalls and how we've been dealing with this over the years. We analyzed this some weeks ago and said that, look, if you look at the current nature of our energy mix, if we do not take time, our energy sector will always set us back. Why? Because you have an energy sector where more than 70% or somewhere about 70% of your generation mix comes from thermal, which means that at every point in time, you need fuel to keep this thermal plant running for you to produce power. The finance minister has made a very clear point, and he said that, look, what is really affecting us is the shortfalls. And the fact that government in 2024 had to pay some 1.46 billion, not Ghana cedis, but US dollars to keep the light on. Rising shortfalls, government says that, look, we cannot be paying this from our own pockets almost every year, so possibly let's do burden sharing. And that's why they've actually introduced a revision to the Energy Sector Levy Act. Many have said that, look, the finance minister didn't really say anything about this in the budget, but that is not the case. He actually gave us a hint. And in the 2025 budget, he said he was seeking revision to some 10 acts And that included ESLA. And if you've forgotten about ESLA, that is the Energy Sector Levy Act that enabled the government to charge all of these energy levies and all of that. And he said that he was going to ask for a revision. Nobody actually ever dreamed that this revision meant a 1 cedi imposition on every litre you buy at the pumps, Winston.
It's interesting to note that before this debate, government decided to take an approach of cutting or removing some taxes that were consistently advocated for during their campaign period. We saw the betting tax taken off, e-levy being taken off. We assessed the implication on our revenue shortfalls and how it will implicate our projections going forward. However, many have also said that the introduction of this levy tends to kind of be a subtle introduction of another levy. We recall some time back I said, although the e-levy was taken off, although the approach was kind of not too subtle, not really acceptable, but it will return back in another form. I made that projection here on Beyond the Numbers, and this some way is not e-levy, but it's a fuel levy, which is the way it's going to be in the pocket of everyone, because directly affecting consumer purchasing power. That angle needs to be also reviewed, because if you go down to the numbers, it tells you that just last week the president removed taxes on insurance for as one conditions to ensure fuel prices came down. We're going forward, many are projecting that the fuel price will still come down to possibly around 11 cities, and that is something for debate. Because if you look at the global factors, which we'll come back to, we'll tell where we are headed.
Exactly, Winston, that was a fantastic one. Definitely we'll go to the factors actually maybe baiting government to introduce this, a new levy. Let me not say like a revision, but the most important thing to look at here is the shortfalls. Because once you have the means of paying the shortfalls and something that's not coming from government, then you can have, government can now say, oh, now I have the fiscal space, right? Because under the cash waterfall mechanism, which was revised in 2021, the system is in such a way that ECG is the entity and the only entity to be bringing in inflows. And the system says that under the cash waterfall, if ECG, or if there's any difference between what ECG brings and what it's supposed to pay, the shortfalls is supposed to be funded by the finance ministry, which we call the top-up payment. But this top-up payment is actually affecting government, and the IMF itself is not happy with that. That's why we had to do the energy sector, reforms. And in fact, the finance minister gave an update in the 2025 budget, and I want you to take us through the numbers. Even if you look at just, the shortfalls that were paid to just IPP's legacy debt and arrears payment, this figure is staggering, Winston.
It's interesting to know that just this morning on the SMS show, Super Morning Show, they had the opportunity to speak to the finance minister, the energy minister, and he reiterated that the new structure with the IPPs makes it quite regular in the settlement of their debt owed them. And that particular agreement or deal they've had with them has ensured there's flexibility and commitment from the government's end, as well as acceptance from the IPP's end. But if you look up the arrears left, that is $395.25 million US dollars, tells you that this is still a burden which will have to be settled. But what up this one Ghana city, cumulatively giving us about 5.1 billion Ghana cedis annually, tells you that this is going to be a one city that is going to stay for a long time, because the purpose for which the energy minister cited is to ensure liquefied petroleum gas is bought to power the thermal side of the operation. Let's not forget that in September and June, most of the West African pipelines, as well as Jubilee, will go off for a while for maintenance purposes. And there should be provisions. If you look at the Energy Commission report for 2025, they made projection that in the first half of 2025, Ghana is going to experience shortfall in energy challenge. There's going to be energy challenges in 2025. These projections were there. And we are in the first month of June. Therefore, I'm not surprised government is rationalizing its policy based on introducing this particular...
Now many have said that this kind of mammoth payment to IPPs in terms of shortfalls shows the inefficiencies in the energy sector. Because you can't be paying only IPPs alone about 395, and this figure is even, I'm sure, is even lower than what the IPPs themselves were projecting. Let's go into this. If you look at those who were paid under the system, Amandi, St. Park, AXA, Senate, Kapa, Sonana Sogli, all of these guys, these big producers, if you put all of them together, government had to cough up some 395 million Ghana cedis as shortfalls. Then there's another sector, which is the payment to fuel suppliers. And this has become the biggest burden. And you referenced the Energy Commission's energy sector outlook. And they said that, look, if we really want to keep our lights on, we need to find some over 1.2 billion Ghana cedis to buy fuel. The 2024 or 2025 budget is giving us an indication that if you look at the amount government had to transfer to fuel suppliers in 2025 alone, that's more than $500 million. $775 billion transfers to fuel suppliers. And we have said that, look, if this is really the case, the math is that under the cash waterfall mechanism, ECG is supposed to pay IPPs and fuel suppliers about 50 million Ghana cedis, or $50 million almost every month, right? That $50 million, the amount of cedis ECG needs to get that $50 million has been reduced significantly because of the appreciation of the cedi. If this is so, then this is going to relieve the ECG of its burden, fiscal burden under the cash waterfall mechanism. So if this is really the case, that the cedi appreciation is really bringing in some sort of breathing space to ECG, why then do you need another tax of 1 cedi on every liter of fuel that you buy, if indeed the kind of breathing space we are getting from the cedi appreciation is anything to write home about, Winston?
That's a very good question. And if you look at some of the analysis that were made by the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, they said that the only factor in the petroleum price build-up that looks good and convenient now is the appreciation of the Ghana cedi. Although the global factors such as the crude oil prices, some are quite susceptible to changes due to global dynamics, it appears that it may be too rational to say, yes, let's adjust these factors because of the appreciation of the cedi. Because if you go to the market, marketers and traders will tell you the fact that they are struggling to adjust prices because of the rate of fall. Because in businesses, one thing that is quite possible is sustainability. How sustainable is the fall? Though many will appreciate the fall, but they are wondering how sustainable is the fall? What is the price range? The president gave an indication that the actual rate of depreciation is will hit between 10 to 12 Ghana cedis. This was from the president. Afterwards, just this morning, we saw it hitting at 10 cedis to the 20 pesos. That is how the market is reacting. But coming to the energy sector, it tells you a picture that going forward, government has a lot of work to do. We assessed initially last week about ECG, where we brought Enclave Power assessing the losses. And we realized that they have minimum of 0.2% losses in their power distribution because they are independent power distributor compared to ECG, over 32% losses, and that is a key concern. VRA, who mostly supply power to mining enclaves, if you look at the suppliers of Enclave, the customers of Enclave and VRA, they are consistently big mining firms. If you look at the operations, their industry, so the losses, they use their energy for specific production purposes. So it is likely they may not lose more compared to ECG, who many people will buy power, but to know where the meter is located, especially places like Ashaba, Kaswa, some places, you go to somebody's bedroom, you don't find a meter outside, and it's easy. And many illegal activities, transformer damages, all these are found in specific areas, and that is the key issue ECG have to deal with. And they are forced to generate internal funds to finance these key issues. However, they are supposed to also bring all this money gathered as revenue back to the price waterfall mechanism, and this is the challenge ECG is facing.
I mean, ECG has a big headache. Government itself has a bitter pill that has been taken for a number of years, which is the shortfall payment. And government says that, look, I am tired of this bitter pill. I mean, whenever I take it, it gives me a lot of fiscal burden.
Yeah.
So let me find a strategic way to bring in, revise a certain levy so that we can all do burden sharing. The government says that, look, I've been able to reduce fuel prices to a certain level. So the windfall that you are enjoying, I just need 1 cedi out of that windfall. That will not take the prices too high, because we are even projecting that prices should come, down significantly. But talking about that over $700 million that was paid to the fuel suppliers, this is the list of fuel suppliers that we had to pay that money to. I mean, that tells you the kind of burden that government has. I mean, the next slide, in the subsequent slide, we'll be analyzing whether the current, bill or the current law in terms of the energy levy will help to close this, shortfalls. Talking even about SOE's transfer, that's also about $250 million. And in there, ECG is also enjoying a shortfall payment from government. That's about 13 million Ghana cedis, dollars from government. We Power, Africa Energy Investment Corporation, all of them enjoying shortfall payments from government. That tells you the kind of burden that Ministry of Finance actually finds itself in paying the shortfalls. But definitely, the big number is the legacy debt. Usually, I know legacy is a positive word. My father left me, father has had a good legacy, but when it comes to our energy space, when we talk about legacy debt, it sends negative shockwaves, the spine of, consumers. $3.1 billion. The president actually made mention of 2.5 some few weeks ago. The finance minister said, no, this has been revised. $3.1 billion as of March 2025.
You recall years back, there were conversations to add this particular debt to overall debt stock, and that will give us a better reflection of a nation, how much we owe when we talk about numbers. If you look at these numbers and you look at the conversation that has not been much of a focus, the nuclear sector investment. If you go to the Atomic Energy Commission, if you look at the archives, you realize Ghana has done in-depth analysis, in-depth research about the nuclear power potential. We have locations, they've done all the survey. All that is left, according to the information I have, is that now they are reviewing the various proposals that have been brought by interest companies from Russia, US, all of them demanding that their proposals should be considered by government. But if we should decide to invest a lot of money on the nuclear aspect and ensure, because if you look at nuclear, the sustainability is amazing. The shortfall is less. The pressure, environmental related impact is minimal. All these, if we decide to go to that level, a lot of these ECG issues will actually come down. But talking about the future, we must address today. What is current is ECG. We know that this legacy debt is a burden. It has to be cleared. Government is projecting that if this 1 cedi is paid within the next 3 years, it will totally eliminate our debt, especially on the areas left in the energy sector.
That would be very interesting if we are able to clear that. But the energy minister said, no, this is not for legacy debt. But what we know about the shortfalls is that the reason why the shortfall is the main devil of the energy sector is that this is a cost that government would have to fund. And we know government isn't really in a very good position in terms of fiscal, when you look at its fiscal environment. This is a shortfall projection. 2024, finance minister said we paid 1.46 billion. And he says that if you look at 2025, per their modeling, the shortfalls could reach some 2.23 billion, dollars. And he gave this and said that, look, this is our burden. And possibly this is the reason why they've actually introduced that 1 cedi on every, one cedi addition on every liter of fuel that you buy. Is that they have done the math and they have realized that, look, if they go on and do business as usual and not do anything about the energy sector, shortfalls alone could reach $8.9 billion if you look at 2023 to 2026. The key question is, where is the government which is struggling to pay, nursing and whatever thing? Where is it going to find money to pay these huge shortfalls? And we were saying that, look, if you look at the outlook of our energy mix, that makes it a big national security threat, because almost every time fuel supply IPPs demand a lot from the government because it's not their fault. They have to produce. When they produce, you need to pay. And because they do some of this production, or they do their production in dollars, and because of the forex losses we encounter every year, it makes it very, very difficult to keep the lights on, Winston.
It will surprise you that most of these issues and shortfalls, if you go to the market, you realize we have over 80 different meters in the market, supplied by different suppliers within to ECG. ECG does not necessarily produce the meters. You have individuals or companies that do that. And the challenging aspect of it is the metering and the systematic, or let's say the metering of the system that is supposed to ensure pricing are quite different if you go to the market.
That's actually one of the big sources of system losses, right?
System losses, and that is a very key challenge. If you go to ECG's report, it's something that has been cited consistently. Customers in different areas, some of them have different issues, especially the metering system.
Yeah.
They buy electricity for 100 Ghana cedis. In less than a day, they wonder what they do. They tell you
the reading is
different. They tell you, I use only light, air conditioning, or not probably with TV and fan, and sadly my power is just finishing. And these are issues that have to be addressed consistently. But with this burden that is piling up, I'm sure possibly the financing model for ECG has to be reviewed. We've already heard about a concessionary agreement proposal that is about to be rolled out. We want details of how it is going to happen, the structures, the longevity of that operation, and how it will address the systematic issues related to ECG. ECG is very strategic going forward, especially now that the government has decided that their 24-hour economy is a game changer.
Yeah.
But the game will not change if the rules remain the same.
But you see, you've raised another important question. Somehow we ask, government wants to operate a 24-hour economy, and they know that that will actually be hinged on a stable power supply. They've done the math and they've realized that, look, if we don't do anything about the shortfalls, we cannot keep the lights on to operate that 24-hour economy that you want. So sort of like to say that if you want a 24-hour economy, then pay the 1 cedi on the fuel. That is not government's explanation anyway, but these are some of the, analysis also going behind the scenes. People are asking, what is government really looking for? But the question is, what did government really see before having the vim that they can actually introduce this revision in the levy? And this is the chart that we are showing you. This is the global Brent crude price. And we know the fair value, the normal level has always been around $100 per barrel.
Exactly.
Now, this is where we are seeing from May of 2020, what we are seeing is that this has been below $100, right? Now we are even talking about $65, $64, or $68 per barrel. And government says, oh, this is a big windfall, looking at where we've come from to this fall. This is your savings so far, right? So government is saying that just by looking at some of these charts, we can say that, look, we have the big windfall, and definitely we can actually take an advantage from there. But many have said that fuel prices are not constant. They vary. So what is the assurance that we could be around 64 or 65 in the next year or in the next few months? What do you have to say, banging on some of these charts?
It has come to our attention of a lot of the deregulated markets because of the OMCs. Now, it's become more competitive in pricing. It's more like selling tomatoes now. If yours is quite higher, someone will sell it lower because he has a constant supplier who provides for him timely, and therefore he can vary the prices to attract more customers. That is what is happening in the OMC market now. With these projections, many have said, Moody's researcher had information this morning, they are projecting the crude oil price to remain around $60 to $65 a barrel. And that, according to them, is due to certain policies that the U.S. market is going to have, especially in negotiation with Iran.
OPEC politics and all of those things going on.
With Iran to minimize some fuel supplies in the market. And with that being said, this government consideration is I suggest government should not put their hopes on this.
I see.
Because this can change.
This can fail you.
This can fail you. What is important for government to do is to ensure our domestic refinery, if Tema Oil Refinery is really working consistently We know we have some private refineries in the country who can also come back. Government can benefit if we are rather refinery instead of exporting. At the moment, it is good for pricing purposes, but in terms of consideration in settlement of our debt, I don't think we have any benefit from this side.
Very important point. With the slightest geopolitical shift, this can move from 64, 65 to $100 per barrel. Not just that, government says that maybe I'm not just looking at what is happening on a global scale. My local currency has gained strength. It is a macho now, performing some sort of, wabo against the dollar. And that is some of the factors that government is looking at. And it's saying that already we've done some magic on the market, saying that, look, we've been able to reduce it from some 16 cedis, per liter. So let's say about currently around 12 cedis, between 11 cedis, 50 pesos and 12 cedis, in that space. 11 cedis, 50 pesos, so let's say about 12 cedis on 13 cedis. And government is saying that, look, if you do the math, you may have enjoyed a windfall of, let's say, 2 cedis, 40 pesos. Give us 1 cedi. We are expecting that there could be more windfalls, and that will not even affect, the kind of impact, the negative impact that we are all projecting.
Also, the market is responding differently to this announcement, because if you look at the short period between the windfall has been, don't forget, we were high as 15 cedis, 99 pesos.
At the point where even about 20 cedis.
Exactly. So it just took us just a minimal. We've always been experiencing quite higher for prices, and this has sustained for quite some time now, hovering around 14 Ghana cedis, now 15 Ghana cedis, but the fall has been a bit gradual. In the last pricing window, it's fallen down by 5 consecutive times, and that is something consumers are saying, although fair prices were still remain the same until recently, when the fair prices, which is a key factor in the inflationary basket, the Statistical Service today's announcement said that just the reduction in fuel prices has caused a marginal depreciation in inflationary figure to 18.4%. So it should tell you that although these key small things are factors that are taken into consideration, don't forget, if you go to the bank to borrow, inflation is something that they consider. All these play a key role, including food price, food and non-food inflation also experience a reduction. So it tells you that we are moving towards a quite stable projections, according to the IMF, according to the World Bank, even the central bank's policy projections seems to be going towards some positive angle. But is it too soon for people to benefit? Is it too soon to say the trickle down has been enormous? That is the key question we'll be asking subsequently in our analysis.
Well, the two of us, we are not very old, but one thing we have seen is that, usually after 2 years after the IMF program, we see some of these positive changes. But government says that, look, we have gold board to consolidate this. But we'll leave you with this last chart. And the question we are asking you is that, are we at fair value yet for government to be taxing us? If you look at this chart from the Energy Commission, fair value per our projection should be around 8 cedis, 50 pesos. We are still around 11 cedis or 12 cedis. We are not there yet. The question is, should we reach fair value before government tax us? But government has already done the taxing. They say that, look, there's a lot of windfall coming your way, so taking 1 cedi from you will not really affect you. So relax. Government has more for you in the subsequent windows.
Thanks for watching today's edition of Beyond the Numbers. We'll come here on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Have a good business day. Bye-bye.